All right, hello class. This week, I'm sure everybody knows that we're researching if pilot age affects past 60 and 70 years old. If it affects the safety of flight operations, and again, I think it's another wonderful topic to go through, and I found some fantastic research that I believe I'd share with you guys and kind of go through a little bit. Just the first thing that I want to bring up in relatable sense, I guess, to everybody in a funny way, is when you see an elderly person driving on the highway that is going relatively slow or not really obeying the rules of the road anymore, and you say, well, why don't these people have to take another driver's test when they reach a certain age or somewhere along that lines? I just figured I'd bring that into reality for this, and I realized that this is probably one of the most touchy subjects in all of aviation right now. Is aviation pilots are getting put out of jobs because of how old they are, and can they look at that as possible age discrimination? And I can see that. However, they have to worry about the safety effects, and the FAA has to worry about, if we allow older pilots to fly, uh, or is it going to affect the safety of flight? And there's a lot of things that I read about that are somewhat conflicting. However, there is a constant line of the articles that I went through about what the age actually does to a pilot and what they can bring to the table with their expertise for the age, and some of the overall factors that you need to look out for so far as aviation management wise. One of the things that I wanted to really bring up, one of the studies that I found, was its accidents involving over pilots were mainly caused by turbulence or mechanical failures within the airplane, and accidents in younger pilots were more likely to be caused in taxiing events. However, older pilots tend to outperform their younger counterparts in executing long and quickly spoken air traffic control commands and in multitasking under conditions and increased attentional resources. This is mainly attributed because of the amount of expertise and training that they've had compared to their younger counterparts. Is their ingrained sense of, when this happens, this is what I need to do to be able to control the situation. And they've been through that over and over and over again, or have dealt with similar situations throughout their career. Now, of this study, they also did a study of 538 accidents in the past 20 years. And they did all different age range. And unfortunately, because of when pilots were getting out of the commercial aviation, it was 60 years old. The study only went to 60, so I can't speak for pilots going to 65 or 70 based off of this study alone. But it did state that the ages between 45 and 54 were the most dangerous. So far as accidents, contributing to about 45% of the accidents, but actually 55 to 59 were some of the lowest, and the younger was about 25% of the accidents. Now, I find it peculiar that 45 to 54 is probably one of the most pertinent age groups for accidents, and I would mainly attribute that personally would be complacency within the job. You've done it for so long, stress on the job, fatigue, multiple factors that don't really attribute to age. They It's just happened. You're 20 years in your career, and it happens. Um, Now, one very interesting study that I read about was the accuracy of reaction times between pilots, and they did it for a study of about 1,000 different pilots. So it was actually a pretty good sample group that I read, and I'm just going to read you their exact quote. And their sample group was ages 28 to 79 of pilots that have been out of the industry for a little while that still fly civilly. And the accuracy of younger subjects with more expertise were less affected by an increase of workload per reaction time. The accuracy of older subjects with less experience was most affected by an increase of workload, had the most amount of mistakes. Younger subjects with the least amount of experience and older subjects with more expertise were moderately affected by the increase in workload. So typically individuals that were 28 to 40 years old then had more expertise, meaning they just had more flight time. They had more experience. They were less affected by workloads and their reaction times to be able to perform in an emergency. The younger subjects with less expertise and less flight time, and the older subjects with the most amount of flight time performed the same per reaction time. So it is something to be said that the older you get, the less your reaction times become, which I think is just somewhat common sense. You get a little bit older, your reaction times are going to slow down a little bit, which can affect greatly in an emergency scenario in flight. Now, even the study I did the week before, the video that I posted the week before, there was an interesting article, and I imagine it's probably by the same guy, about grip strength and health within pilots, or stress within pilots. You imagine, you're stressed in flight, you're probably gripping that handle pretty hard, especially if you're in the middle of an emergency. And this article actually touched on grip strength and overall health in aging pilots. By measuring grip strength, you could measure some sort of overall health. And the study specifically stated they only had 63 individuals to sample from, and they were going off of previous studies that have been done about grip strength and age and how you can tell overall health by that. And their study was small, but they did find significant findings within it. But they did say take it with a grain of salt, and I'll say the same thing. But one of the interesting things that I found was the association was true of male as well as female participants. Grip strength decreased significantly with increasing age among men and women. Now, grip strength might not be a good judge of overall health. However, I believe grip strength is probably pretty important as a pilot, especially inside of an airline. And grip strength can show a lot of different things, from stress-related accidents to control in accidents. And my closing argument for this is, should we allow pilots to be, fly up until they're 70 years old? I really think it's by a case-by-case basis. It shouldn't be decided that, everybody needs to be cut off at 70 or everybody needs to be cut off at 65. It should really be by a performance-based reaction time and expertise basis. There should be tests when you reach that certain age, just the same as the argument is, when you reach a certain age, should you be driving on the road? Well, some 80-year-olds are probably better than most 25-year-olds on the road, but there's some 80-year-olds that either can't see or don't have the reaction times anymore, don't have the processing times, or can't handle the mental workload of driving on the road anymore. And that should be handled by a case-by-case basis. Most of the studies that I've found shows that expertise in aviation outperforms less expertise. The older you get, the more expertise you get to be able to apply in those emergency situations. So there's something to be said about expertise in aviation, but when do you start losing your reaction times and your ability to perform in emergencies? That's my argument. It really should be a case-by-case basis. It shouldn't be you need to stop flying at 65 or you need to stop flying at 70. If the person can perform and the reaction times are there and their expertise shines through and their age doesn't affect them flying, then let them fly. If it's obviously proven that this person can't handle the mental workloads anymore, they shouldn't be able to fly. That's my take on it. I hope everybody has a good week.